Hello, everyone. This is Kevin from SDM Software. I'm here
And
with.
Darren. I'm here too, Darren Marlia.
How are you, Darren?
I'm good.
So, we thought it would be good to take a couple minutes and walk through a couple things that many of you are probably aware of. How did this all happen? What happened in the last 24 hours, 36 hours?
Yeah, so Tuesday, that would have been June 14th, Microsoft did their Patch Tuesday. And in this one, I actually noted it Tuesday night on Twitter that this one contained a group policy fix for a privilege elevation vulnerability. I thought nothing of it at the time, but then I woke up on Wednesday morning to a flurry of emails and from some fellow group policy MVPs reported that there was a thread on the Microsoft forums indicating that people were having problems with group policy basically failing to process. And it was a result of this fix, and when they backed out the fix, everything was fine. So dug into it a little bit more, and it became clear through the day that essentially the issue was that Microsoft made a change in the way per user group policy processing worked. It no longer runs in the security context of the user. It now runs in the security context of the computer. So if you had a GPO that was using per user security group filtering, that would essentially fail to process. If you had taken out the authenticated user's permission on the GPO and replaced it with, let's say, the marketing users, well, that didn't work because group policy user processing was now running as the computer account. And this broke a lot of folks. So Microsoft came out with this KB article that Kevin has up on the screen now that described it as a known issue and a by design behavior change. They didn't tell us in advance, of course, and I think part of the problem was they didn't necessarily test this scenario, but it basically caused a bunch of grief for folks.
So it's pretty. It's not very different than any other update that we've seen. When I look at it, it's pretty standard.
Yeah.
Just to give some insight, this is MS16-072. It came out, as Darren said, June 14th, 2016. The vulnerability could allow elevation of privilege if an attacker launches a man-in-the-middle attack against the traffic passing between a DC and a target machine. And then there's some additional information available. A lot of it is sort of redundant from what I can tell. But this is new.
Right.
There's a lot of chatter with the group policy team.
Yep.
With the MVPs, from what I understand.
Right. We've been talking about it, and
clearly, as I can show you right here.
Yeah, that's the tech. I don't know what it's called now. It's not called TechNet anymore, but the forums that Microsoft has up on their site. This started Wednesday morning, and
this is not a slight list of.
No, there's a lot of folks that are having the issue,
and I have to call out, certain people, not by name, but just in general. Your creativity in posting these forums are pretty incredible. Some people have come up with super creative ways to describe the problem, the pain, and Microsoft. And I say that tongue in cheek because it's sort of hilarious.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, it's old school. It seems like it was one of those old school unfortunate situations where they put out an update, probably with all the best intention in the world, and then suddenly you all showed up at work and GP was starting to fail and you didn't quite know why. Good reason to test your updates.
Yeah, right.
So what Darren did last night, Darren and I were talking about this yesterday, and we were like, how do we chime in and share some opinions, and maybe we should jump in. And one of the best things about my job is I can say something to Darren like, oh, wouldn't it be interesting if we did something like, and then before I finish the sentence, he's done it. So last night, Darren was probably thinking about this and couldn't stop, so he ended up putting this up on our blog. If you go to sdmsoftware.com and look at our blog, you'll find a post from yesterday, new group policy patch, MS16-072, breaks GP processing behavior.
Right.
I have heard the word borks
Foobard.
Foobard messes up other.
Yeah.
Not pretty.
No.
Now, his blog post is really interesting. I would suggest you all read it. We'll tweet the link, and we already have. So if you're following Group Policy Guy or SDM Software, you'll find it. But the key thing that Darren did, which is really fascinating, is he provided a script. The script is actually pretty simple conceptually, but there's some pretty interesting PowerShell-y stuff that Darren did in here. And the script that he provided it's all native. It's all Microsoft.
Yeah, it's all
commandlets.
using the Microsoft Group Policy module commandlets, right?
And I would think that from a SDM perspective, we could probably take it to a different level for Group Policy customers and provide something a little more interesting. But for this, to get a simple fix out there to people, it's there. So let's take a look at it real quick. That's lovely. I'm going to try to reconnect that guy.
Yeah, and just to be clear, Microsoft in that KB article that Kevin mentioned, they call out what the fix, quote unquote, is for this, which is to change the permissions on your GPOs, and that's what this script is doing. So Kevin's highlighted the script here, but what we basically have done with the script is,
Sorry, I'm back.
Yeah, is in that first line, get GPO all, we assign all the GPOs in the current domain to a variable called all GPOs, and then we just loop through them all, and we test to see if they fall into the category of needing to be fixed.
Yeah, for those of you who are new to GP or PowerShell scripting or new to scripting in general, this is a pretty common construct where this first line gets a collection of things, and then you go through those things one at a time.
Right.
You're sort of almost implicitly referencing a variable as it's a placeholder for the first item in that collection.
Totally.
So I go through them one at a time for each one in there, and then another loop. It does some evaluation. This nomenclature is a little .NET-y.
Yeah.
There's a GPO as an object, and in that object there's a bunch of information in there. So if I want to look at all GPOs, for example. Sorry, I'm going to take a little side trick here. So all GPOs, that variable now holds every GPO in my environment. Not super interesting. But if I want to look at just the first GPO in the collection and then see some data associated with it, in this case, what did you do? User
DS version.
DS version.
Yep.
So I can look at that piece of data. The reason he makes that call for all, is the DS version greater than 0, is because at the end of the day, every change that's made to any GPO, the DS version will be increased.
Right.
So it doesn't necessarily mean there's settings in that GPO.
Right.
It just means at some point there were.
Right. So, yeah, that's correct. So, and the point of that in the context of this hotfix or this patch that Microsoft delivered is that this issue and the remediation of the issue only affects per user GP processing. So, in fact, we only need to worry about GPOs that contain user settings. So the first test that I do is to check to see if the current GPO in the list has user settings. And if it does, then we move into, okay, now that I know it has user settings, the actual fix is to, if authenticated users or domain computers don't have read permissions to the GPO anymore because you've removed that because you're using security group filtering, then we want to identify those GPOs and then remediate those. So the $perm1 and $perm2 are getting permissions on the GPO and trying to determine if either of those permissions exist. If they do, then we don't need to do anything, and that's what the if perm1 equals null and perm2 equals null next to, right below it does, is it's okay, we've gotten the permissions for those two groups. Are either of them or are both of them null? If both of them are null, that means, hey, we didn't find either of those groups on the GPO. We need to add it, and that's what the set GP permission call does. It's adding just read, not read and apply group policy. That's a completely different permission that affects who processes the GPO, but the GPO read permission just affects who can read it, and that's the fix that allows per user GP processing to start working again after you've installed this hotfix.
Okay, let me look at two things. So first off, the get GP permission is a commandlet from the Microsoft Group Policy module.
It is.
And I'm calling it out here in the bottom of my screen, pointing to a specific GPO, looking for authenticated users.
Right.
And what I get returned is the permission that is currently associated with that.
That's
now,
right.
This is sort of strange because they summarize a little too much in my opinion. There's actually two permissions implied here.
Right.
There's GPO read, which is the one that we care about in this scenario.
Right.
And there's what's called apply group policy.
Right.
At least in GPMC and the UI, that's what it looks like. So when I look at it, I can say, oh, there is a permission here. It's GPO apply. If it wasn't there, I would need to make sure it was there in order
Right.
for it to continue to work. The other thing to point out here, or to ask, I guess, is this section here, you chose authenticated users. You could have solved this same challenge by adding domain computers, correct?
That's right. And I've had some discussions with folks about that and the choice of one or the other. And really it's up to you. I think in the context of a least privilege approach, you could use domain computers here, and you wouldn't be opening up read access to all users and computers in the domain. Again, you're not changing the processing of the GPO, you're just changing who can read the GPO, read the settings in the GPO. And so domain computers would work just as well as authenticated users here.
Right. Okay. So let's see if I can make this happen. I'm on the fly going to make a little change here. Let's choose this GPO. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove authenticated users. And that implicitly removes authenticated users read and apply group policy.
Right.
And I'm going to add another random security group here. Let's see, what should I add? This doesn't matter at all, but I'm going to take far too long to pick one because that's what I do. All right, so again, this implicitly adds read and apply group policy. If I look at the delegation tab, I'll see the GPAA service inherited from the security filtering, right? So be careful about that because the ACLs are confusing here.
Right.
It may be the only GPO I have in place that meets this criteria.
Right.
So if I run this script, as long as all of my typing, I could get, because of that last line, right host GPO has been modified. Oh, I see what I did. His check was too good. This GPO itself didn't have any user settings in it.
Oh, right.
I should show them how to add the user settings with GPAE, but our automation engine, but that's a story for a different day. So let me just do this real quick.
We actually have a PowerShell commandlet that lets you touch the version number on the GPO, so you could have used that.
That's right.
But this is easier too.
I'm not even sure what I'm enabling, but it's an unlinked GPO, so I'm okay with that.
Chances of disaster are small.
And easy to recover from. So I understand that the experts in the PowerShell world have changed their mind about right host killing small furry creatures. So using that as a verification at the end, PP test has been modified to grant authenticated users read access. And I would imagine if I go back in here and refresh, I will see on my delegation tab, authenticated users have my read permission.
Right, and you'll notice that we haven't done anything to the security group filter that Kevin added. That GPAA service account still has security group filtering to apply the GPO, but we've just added authenticated users to be able to read it. And that unbreaks the patch, basically.
All right, so just to summarize, this script is available on our website. Darren has graciously wrote up a nice blog post and provided the script. He's pretty explicit. He used not only bold and all capital letters, but a red font. So make sure you check it out. And hopefully the script is helpful. Let us know. The knowledge base article or the patch is MS16-072. Do some research, test it, verify it, validate it, and keep listening because I'm sure there's going to be interesting discussions over the next couple of days about this. But thank you very much, Darren.
Yep.
I'm sure that was a huge help to a lot of people.
I hope so.
All right.